Hi everyone, how's it going? Before we get into today's video proper, I'd like to address something that was brought up roughly a week ago when I put out the bad news, good news video. In it, I mentioned I wanted to create an online deck repository for my decks so that you could view all of them in one place. Now, I've received some very good comments. Thank you to everyone who contributed. One of the best suggestions I got was by this comment chain here, which suggested me to use either Jackie or Hugo as the backend to leverage on the fact that Netrunner DB produces decks in Markdown format and then host it on a GitHub Pages site, serving as a static site. So that sounded like a really good idea, and I spent an entire day working on it. And from that, I'm proud to announce that I made absolutely no progress. Did I say proud? I mean embarrassed. I do have some programming experience after all, and this proved too tough for me. Challenge accepted, challenge failed. So instead of using GitHub as a static site provider, I decided to chicken out and do it the easy way. Do it on WordPress instead. I mean, I guess the salvation point is that I did come up with a script to automate the posting of these decks, so it should be a bit easier on me in terms of workload every time I come up with a video and deck. Now, on to this. So this works kind of like a blog in that every time I make a new every time I make a new deck, I'll post it here. And yeah, I also have the videos that are related to this deck. The main function that was missing prior to this was the search function. So now you can go here, and there's a search bar here where you can search for whatever card or cards you're looking for if you're trying to filter through my decks. So let's say I'm looking for a deck with Magnum Opus. I'm just going to put in Magnum Opus here and search for it, and here are the results. So these are all the Magnum Opus decks I've made so far. The formatting is not very nice. You can see the summary is, it's in a very horrible format because that's the way WordPress does summaries. If you know how to fix this, if you have the technical know-how, please let me know. Otherwise, this will have to do, I guess. I guess the good point is that the title more or less speaks for itself, so you can basically judge the deck based on what you see in the title. That aside, today's video will be regarding the Valencia deck we played last time, Good Stuff Anarch. Last time we left off, it was pretty unsatisfying. We played against a Gagarin, we drew all 8 cards, we won. Not very satisfying, right? Yeah, let's try a different game this time with the same Anarch deck. Let's see how that goes. Today we are up against CI. I hope you're not bored of seeing CI by now. That's what happens when you remove Jackson Howard and ETF from the card pool. Anyway, one of the biggest threats of CI is that when you sit against it and don't know what your opponent's on, it's very hard to actually place a finger on what kind of strategies they might be using. They could be on hard-hitting news, node testing, boom. They could be on the Glasshouse list. They could be doing, just standard Glacier, albeit in CI. It's very hard to tell. So I just do a standard opening here of drop Magnum Opus, take 6 credits. Can't go wrong with the opening. It's kind of like Diesel and Show Gamble. With Urban, yep. So my intention next turn is to inject, get some things going, and go from there. The frantic coding in my hand isn't actually that appealing. Now that I have my Magnum Opus out, there's not much reason to play frantic coding except to find my decoder. Because I already have my killer and my fractor in my hand. So a very interesting starting hand here. So I played it inject, and MK Ultra and David hit the bin, while Page Piper and Earthrise stay in my hand. So this is immediately a call to play Page Piper. Very amazing here. Getting both the other 2 Page Pipers from my deck into the bin, and allowing me to set up for the Page Piper frantic coding combo next turn. So this is where things change. Because previously it wasn't worth it to play frantic coding because I would be milling myself. I wouldn't be drawing any cards, and it cost me 3 to play for a black orchestra I might not get. But in this case, I can easily play frantic coding, and I can choose to install something and not lose 10 cards from my deck. So that's pretty good. Not that it really matters, to be honest, because against CI, I'm probably not going to dig through my entire deck. So on the start of my turn, Page Piper refreshes and I can trigger it. So I'm going to play the frantic coding here, and I see a bunch of cards. I have the option to install Magnum Opus, which I'm not going to, MK Ultra, which is already in my hand, or the David. the choice is clear. The only remaining David in my deck, might as well get it on the table. Also helps me protect against Fairchild 3, so that's good. And then I take more Magnum Opus money here. My opponent isn't really threatening to score out here, and knowing that Accelerated Diagnostics is not in the card pool, I don't have to worry about a one-turn combo just yet. Or do I? They now install a new card. They play Shipment from 10 in. I didn't run last turn. How was I supposed to know they were on Shipment of 10 in, from 10 in? This is crazy. That came out of absolutely nowhere, but this really helps me a lot because this allows me to place a finger on what my opponent is running. With so much influence dedicated to Shipment from 10 in, you have to figure that they are not on something like load testing, hard hitting use boom, and yeah, they won't have influence for any shenanigans. You also see that the 3-pointer in question is the elective upgrade, so it's very unlikely they're running Global Food Initiative either, which means I have to worry about Fairchild 3 as the restricted card of choice. These are the things that go through my head as my opponent reviews the deck to me. Given that I don't know the deck, this is good information. Also, I'm very worried because they could have very well had 3 Vitruviuses in their hand. That is very bad news, so I need to hit the hand here and to steal Vitruvius. I hit an IPO, that's not good. I'm going to run again. Note that I installed the NK Ultra on my first click before running. I don't want to hit Architect here. I'm going to run HQ, third click, and see a Project Vitruvius. Very good. That's one less Vitruvius to worry about. Last click, I'm thinking of what can possibly hurt me on last click. It can't be Fairchild 3. It can't be Sentry because I have NK Ultra, so I'm going to run. They don't rest. I hit the second Vitruvius. Wow, my opponent's unlucky. That basically just killed the game for them. You bet my opponent's strategy here would have been to install and fast advance both Vitruviuses to win within 2 turns, but now they can't do that. Instead, they are forced to play the IPO and play slow. So yeah, I got very lucky there. My opponent did. I basically shut out the fast advance option from them by denying most of their 3-2s. This is something you couldn't do prior to Core 2 rotation because ABT is another 3-2 agenda they could be running. Sure, they could have Merger. I don't think they'd be running Merger here, would they? So they score the final Vitruvius they have with elective upgrade. And yeah, I'm not out of the woods just yet. This means that they threaten a 1-turn win from here. Take note that if they have a 4-2 agenda, something like a sales team or efficiency committee, they can fast advance it with the help of Baltic Labor. So I'm definitely concerned about that, but no worries. I've drawn the cards I needed to deal with it by this point. My opponent was just 1 or 2 turns a bit too slow. I'm able to get an indexing off here. And once I index and I hit an agenda, all I need is a mad dash to close out the game. Being on 4 points, either a 2 or 3 pointer will do the trick. So my opponent's forced to rest the R&D ice here. It's a Fairchild 2. Okay, I don't have my Black Orchestra just yet. Oops, sorry, it's a Fairchild 3, my bad. So I can break it with David. I make sure to preserve 1 David counter to get through 1 more time in case I do hit an agenda. I'm going to let the lose 3 credits subroutine fire here. My bad publicity coming into play. And I'm going to activate the run and see an efficiency committee on the top 5 cards of R&D. So that's going to win me the game. I just need to mad dash in there, pay 6 credits, and use the David counter to get past. Actually, I could have also just trashed the David, but it doesn't matter at this point. That's the game. So yeah, very powerful combo here. Indexing Mad Dash, allowing me to close the game, even though my opponent threatens a win with Baltic Labor into a 4-2 agenda. We pop into Hyperdrive. My opponent asks me for a rematch. I oblige, so we're playing the same decks. Except that now I know my opponent's on Shipment from 10 in, and my opponent now knows I'm Magnum Opus Valencia. Things should play out slightly differently. My opponent gets a turn 1 Violet level, always a good thing to see as CI. As for me, not so much, no turn 1 Magnum Opus. But I do get Gamble into Frantic, never mind. I do get my turn 1 Magnum Opus, can't complain about that at all. Final click is Inject. Ditching a Black Orchestra into the bin and drawing the rest. Alright, so this game's definitely going to be different. For a start, my opponent's icing Archives as well, which is pretty interesting. Not sure why you'd do that. But I continue drawing my deck. Inject draws me a bunch more cards. No breakers though, so I can't really run. I'm a bit afraid of my opponent's ice. I see 2 Bagats in the bin. Oh well, looks like I won't get to show off Bagat today. However, I do have a Maw in my hand, and I plan to use it this game. So, not the best of starts by me. But hopefully the Earthrise will fix that. The hope is with the Earthrise in my hand and the one installed, I should be able to draw into the rest of my deck, even though the first Frantic Coding wasn't that good. It wasn't that good because it did not pitch breakers into the bin. So I still haven't found my paperclip yet. MK Ultra has been found, and I ditched that into the bin. You'll notice that I'm discarding to 4 here because my opponent plays an enforced curfew for some reason. Not very sure why there. They're getting a whole bunch of credits, which I'm very curious by. Not sure why you want to use so many credits or what need my opponent has for it. But one thing's for sure, if they're not scoring agendas now, they're in their hand. So I'm going to go for it. Click 1. Shouldn't have to worry about too much ice except for Fairchild 2. Okay, that's fine. Fairchild 2 is a click and 2 credits away. And I see a sales team. I'm going to steal that immediately and turn off the the current. So gonna ditch a couple of cards in the bin. You see a misdirection there? Yeah, I don't think my opponents are hard hitting you, so I'm leaving that. Arguably, I could have, instead of double clicking, got the Black Orchestra out and used Black Orchestra instead. That might have been a better solution, honestly. Because that would have also set me up for the spoon that's in my hand. Now, this is something that I completely tunnel vision from. I was tunnel vision into doing everything else in my deck. I forgot that there was a spoon in my hand. So from now on, when you see me do any HQ run and you're asking yourself, why isn't he spooning HQ? Just keep in mind, I completely, utterly forgot that spooning HQ is an option. Just a forewarning. For now, I was too busy laser focus on getting that Maw installed because I realized that running HQ, paying 2 clicks and 2 credits for a single access is just not worth it against CI. So what I wanted to do was to make the accesses more efficient. With Maw, I basically get double access if I don't hit an agenda on my normal access. However, my opponent has some tricks up their sleeve, tricks that I didn't see on our first game. My opponent gets an MC austerity policy in the server, giving me only 3 clicks for my turn. This is one good tactic to combat Magnum Opus, a click for a click. Every time you click the MC austerity, that's 2 fewer credits that I have to use. After seeing double Fairchild 2 on HQ, I'm now forced to get the Black Orchestra out. Can't click through it all the time. So I'm basically losing all my money here just to break with Black Orchestra. And I'm guessing, oh, elective upgrade. My HQ snipes are so on point here. Yeah, 2 for 2 on HQ. That is incredibly lucky. So that's good. It puts me at match point, which once again means that once I find an indexing, I can basically guarantee myself the win. Unfortunately, I still haven't drawn the indexing, and one very obvious downside of my deck is that at some point like this, you can't really afford to click for cards, and your opponent's placing so much pressure on you with the NCR austerity that you can't really afford to drop the Earthrise either. Arguably, I should have, if I knew that there's going to be a good chance of me drawing the indexing. But for now, I did not. Instead, I chose to take money so that I can pressure the remote. My opponent pops the MC austerity on their turn, uses shipment from Tenon because I didn't run, and pumps out an agenda. This one seems to be a Vitruvius. Nope, they're going to play Biotic Labor and get another advancement on it so that they can score this 4-2 agenda. It's an efficiency committee. This gives them more clicks so that they can do nasty stuff like install MC Austerity and clicking it again. Because they click MC Austerity twice this turn, I only get 2 clicks for my turn. The dreaded double MCA turn. Ooh, nasty. I really wanted to make a big turn here, but now the only thing I can do is to break HQ and only get a bit of my money back. That's not good. So, breaking through HQ, as I mentioned, it's super expensive. It cost me 10 credits, 5 credits per Fairchild 2, but I miss. I hit an Archive Memories and get a more trigger. So very unfortunate there, but my 2-click turn is over as soon as it began, and here comes the dreaded nightmare. You didn't think you need credits this game. Yeah, but you do, and I'm very scarce on it. Needing 10 credits to run through HQ each time, and only able to gain 8 credits per turn with Magnum Opus. I'm starting to fall behind very quickly. Just a simple 2 Fairchild 2s on HQ is enough to make it too taxing for me to run through it every turn. And to make things worse, my opponent hits me up with a hatchet job. Jeez, that hit. Such incredible hit. That's a problem. So with the extra clicks from Efficiency Committee, they managed to click the MC Austerity, hit me with a hatchet job, and archive memes for a violent level which they then immediately played to gain tempo. Me, I'm stuck with 3 clicks, 3 credits, can't install that magnum opus. I need to make a snap decision here. Do I go for the long game? Do I let my opponent get the next MC austerity policy? I think I can't. They definitely have agendas ready to go. So here, I'm basically forced to say, screw the magnum opus, screw my board state, I'm gonna keep running HQ every single turn as much as I can until I die or he dies. I let both brain damage subroutines fire and I hit HQ for the winning Vitruvius. So I do feel bad about showcasing these 2 games because clearly my access luck was way above par both games. In the first game, I managed to find 2 of the 3 Vitruviuses in my opponent's hand only after 3 runs. And in the second game, obviously, 4 HQ runs, snacking 3 agendas. That's nasty for my opponent. I felt very bad for them. If anything you learned, as a CI player, it's important to keep the runner out of HQ. It tends to be more loaded than R&D is. But I think what I want to cover today more is regarding the Valencia deck. Through these games I realized one thing, and that is that even though you have strong economy with Magnum Opus, you don't actually have a lot of forward momentum. Without Earthrise Hotel ticking, I found that I was starting my turn with very little resources, and every turn was either take 8 with Magnum Opus or do a big run which cost me a lot of my money. For Shapers, on the other hand, they would have cards like Fanside, Bev, their console, or some drip economy like Data Folding and Underworld Contacts. That allows them to maintain a forward tempo and make it such that the longer the game drags out, the more in favor it is for them. This cannot be said for Anarch decks like mine, which only have Magnum Opus to generate economy and no passive card draw, no passive economy. This means that you can potentially get locked out late game because you're not making 10 credits a turn like Shapers are and getting free card draw and free drip econ at the same time. As Anarchs, you have to work very hard for every single credit, every single card. I think a good comparison is that Anarch used to have Wildside Chronotype. The Pancakes combo was incredibly powerful because it gave you a passive 2 cards per turn. You don't have that anymore, so you can suffer very badly against Glacier, and this is why I really wanted to include Cutlery in the deck. Speaking so much about Magnum Opus, it is 100% core to this deck. For all the bad things I said about Magnum Opus, well, they still apply here, but the main thing to note is that with Magnum Opus, I'm in this deck, the main advantage I'm leveraging on is that I can cut the number of deck slots required for economy. For a Valencia deck with 50 cards, I literally only have 6 economy cards in my deck, 3 of which basically carry me the entire game, the 3 Magnum Opuses. Otherwise, I don't run Dirty Laundries or Daily Cards or any drip economy at all. Instead, I'm using the other card slots for more flexibility in my deck and to give me more consistency. This gives me the deck slots to play lots of things in my deck. Things that most other decks cannot afford the deck slots for. I'm running 3 of each Paperclip and MK Ultra. Most decks can only afford 2 of each regular breaker. I'm going up to 3. This allows me to contest against rush decks because the worst thing you want to have is to be locked out by a vanilla or an enigma on remote just because your 2 relevant breakers were stuck at the bottom of your deck. I also have lots of central pressure. You saw that I was using more and indexing in tandem at some points. I also have deck slots for Cutlery up against Glacier decks. I have Recursion for that Cutlery, and most importantly, I have consistency cards like Page Piper and Frantic Coding to get me all these cards that much faster. So Magnum Opus is most important here, not as okay, the most important purpose of Magnum Opus is not to abuse it as a broken economy card, as I kept mentioning that you can just hit it all the time and win late game like it's a win game button, but more because it solves all your economy problems in a single card. That's what I'm using Magnum Opus for here. It allows me to cram more random stuff in my deck. Indexing, wow, this card is amazing. If you remember the first CI game we had, I was able to punish my opponent because they left HQ unguarded Once I got up to 4 agenda points, that was match point for me. I was able to then sit back, wait for the indexing mad dash to close out the game. It also doubles as a very powerful early game card. If someone doesn't ice R&D against you, well, if you have indexing your opening hand, you probably get away with 2 or even 4 points early on. So indexing is very important to have that sort of central pressure towards the end of the game. It gives you an out that is usually superior to just random accessing HQ like I did in the second game. If my HQ accesses weren't so lucky in the second game, you probably you probably can imagine how badly I would have lost. Having bounced the Magnum Opus, I would have been in no position to repeatedly run HQ after a while. So indexing is so important. That's the difference between comfortably winning the game, as was the case in the first game, and just barely making it out alive with good access luck like in the second game. Finally, before you go, I'd like you to try out the website that I mentioned at the start of this video. Go have a look at my deck repository, and if you think you'll be a regular user of it, please leave some comments regarding what you think of the website. If there are any features missing or not done very well in the current iteration of the site, please let me know and I'll try to improve on it to the best of my ability. If there are any features you like or things about the site that you like, also share it with me. That way I'll know that there is demand for the site and that it is worth keeping up. Thanks everyone again for your support, and I hope you enjoy this new deck repository. In the meantime, as always, thanks for watching and happy net running. Goodbye.